Hi, I'm Michel Bayan, and welcome to the Source DS. Hey everybody, and welcome to Direct Tech. My guest today is the president of OPTIVIA, the direct selling arm of Medifast. Recently went through a rebranding from Take Shape for Life, now being OPTIVIA, Mona Ameli. Mona is an extremely progressive executive. I think you're going to love this conversation. I don't even know how to list all the really great topics we've gone through, from, the ideas behind the brand transformation, how they look at their being multi-channel and how they use that to their benefit and how they're evolving through that to make it even better, how she runs the business, how she's creating culture, not just from the field, but also from an internal corporate perspective, how she looks at data, what her metrics are that she's looking at to keep a track of her KPIs through the business and how important data is. We cover the changes that the direct selling industry is going through, get some really great and interesting perspective on that, and dive a little more into the heart with, what is it like to be a female executive in an industry that is mostly female anyway? And what has that journey been like for her? And then get into some of the questions that you are probably used to at this time by now that, I ask most of the people about their lives and how they find balance and causes that are important to them. So just a really great, business value, hard value, and just overall valuable conversation that I hope you'll enjoy. So enjoy my chat with Mona Ameli. Cheers. Okay, Mona Ameli, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast today. Welcome to the Source DS.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today.
So, Mona, you've been in this industry, direct selling, for a long time. You worked for different companies. Can you tell us a little bit, before we get into what's going on now with OPTIVIA, which I'm really excited to talk about? I'd love to get a little more context on your history and how did you get into direct selling? How did you discover it? And what is it that's keeping you here after all these years?
Sure, absolutely. I actually got into the direct selling industry not knowing that I was getting into direct selling. I worked for an international direct response company in Santa Monica, California back in 1996, 97. And someone called me, a recruiter, and talked about a company called Worklife and told me a little bit about what they did. And I wanted to really get a little bit more specialized in kind of personal care and skincare and health and wellness, because that's what I really, really enjoyed from the job that I was doing previously. So I had no idea what they did and how I just went to the interview. And my second day on the job was my boss told me, I'm going to send you to an event, and it's going to be really, really an interesting decision for you when you come back. You're going to either love it and want to continue to have this job, or you're going to say no thank you and you're going to leave. And so I went to this event where Mark Hughes, the CEO and founder of Herbalife, was still alive. So I was lucky enough to see him on stage. And I was absolutely blown away. I was blown away at so many levels that I never thought was possible. I never thought that there could be a world working in a corporate environment where you're able to see so many people and so many lives touched and so many people being transformed and share their transformational journey and testimonials. And I came back from that weekend-long, event, and I said to myself, I found the industry that I want to stay forever in. And that's how my journey started with Herbalife back in 1998. And up to now, I've actually checked out of and left the industry for a couple of years and came back running, because at one point of time, you think that you are in an industry and you're working with a certain type of companies because, your resume and how your job descriptions now have led to just don't leave you a chance to go anywhere else. So it was very important for me to feel that actually I have made a choice to stay within the direct selling industry. So I came back and I've been in here, and I'm so grateful because I've learned so much, not only professionally but personally, being part of this extraordinary industry.
And it really is that. And so amazing to see the lives change. I've seen it myself all over the world, and it really is amazing to see the stories. And so recently, you've been at Medifast now for how long have you been?
Since November 2014.
Okay, so a few years now. And, you guys recently went through this rebranding of the direct selling side from Take Shape to Life to OPTIVIA. And that's not a small and inconsequential decision, right? To go ahead and make a whole new brand and start all over again. So can you tell us a little bit about, how did this idea start? And what was the thought process and the journey for you and the executive team through going through making this decision and how it all came out for you guys?
Absolutely. I have to say that this has been one of the most interesting and thriving transformations that I have been part of throughout my entire career. And I feel so blessed that I've been with Medifast to be able to be part of this transformation and evolution as we went from Take Share for Life to becoming OPTIVIA. Really, the premise of the fact that we started the creation of OPTIVIA was part of the fact that, as you know, Medifast is a multichannel company with a legacy of 37 years of medically formulated and scientifically proven plans that help people, go through their journey of healthy weight. What it was is that Medifast has always been really kind of a diet company, and Medifast having several channels of distribution for their products. One of their key channels of distribution was through the direct selling channel of Take Share for Life. So the part that was interesting with Take Share for Life was that it was probably one of the last channels that was added as part of the distribution of Medifast products, but one of the most thriving. So when I joined in 2014, the company had already gone through a very, very big growth. And I would say the predominant channel was through direct selling, which was Take Share for Life. But we had started to struggle a little bit with a double-digit decline and the fact that we were looking at this kind of a gem, kind of a diamond in the rough, and thinking that how can we, because we have such an extraordinary business model, very unique, very different from other direct selling companies, how are we able to really bring this to the surface and really make it a household name, a household brand, and really bring the opportunity across not only the United States, but also have a brand that can be taken internationally. We also recognized that it was extremely hard for our health coaches who are, kind of our ambassadors, who have been the ambassadors of Take Share for Life, to be able to get our messaging and get our opportunity across because we are selling the same products across all the different channels. So the need to have an exclusive brand for our direct selling channel, the need to be able to be a global brand that's, appealing to the world, but most importantly, to be able to really represent the heart and soul of our Take Share for Life community of health coaches and clients, and the fact that we are so much beyond, just distributing products, but being able to be agents of transformation and a lifestyle company that transforms your life and is about lifelong transformation, one healthy habit at a time. We needed to be able to step out of Take Share for Life and become something a lot more closer to the DNA of being an agent of transformation.
And that's really interesting too, because I am sensing from my interaction with the brand and the way that you guys, like the videos that you've made and the way that you present your brand, it's very different than a lot of other direct selling companies. And so I already kind of, even though I'm not in it, I already kind of get this sense that I'm not in kind of quote unquote normal territory with you, right? There's a lot of kind of unique things about the way that you guys are presenting the brand. Can you share with us a little bit of what is it that's unique about OPTIVIA vis-a-vis other direct selling companies and the way they operate or the way they do things?
Absolutely. So OPTIVIA is really a lifestyle brand. It's about a community of like-minded, like-hearted people that are in service to expanding the mission of optimal health and well-being across the world. We have a very unique business model in such that, different from other direct selling companies, in such that, for example, we do not have a wholesale price. So we do not have distributors. We do not have people that come in that sign up as an independent contractor and actually get a lower price than our clients. Clients and coaches get the same price. We are also about that there are no PV requirements. we are all about the possibility for you to come and join a community where we meet you where you are and we try to support you in your journey. What also is very unique about OPTIVIA is that what we offer, really our offering, is not just about, what we used to call meal replacements, which now we call through the OPTIVIA branding or fuelings. But it's really a combined, a very well, put together, I would say, offering that has key elements of consumable and services and learnings all together. It's a comprehensive approach to optimal well-being. So what you have when you become a client with OPTIVIA is that you have a coach that has been in your shoes and that has been part of your journey that coaches you through you purchasing the fuelings and being on specific plans and helps you through your journey of optimal well-being and transformation. And that coach has no cost to you. It's someone that is a compassionate companion and someone that has the understanding and is certified, so it's able to help you through that. In addition to that, you also get the learning from our Habits of Health system, which our co-founder, Dr. Wayne Scott Anderson, has developed, which is really the possibility for you not to just come in and get healthy, and this would be a yo-yo thing, a one-time, a one quick fix, but a lifelong transformation journey, which teaches you the habits of being healthy and staying healthy for life. And I think that's the part that really differentiates us, is that throughout our programs, throughout our learnings, throughout our working with a coach, the value is that you're able to become a part of a community of life changers that not only change your life, but they change the life of others, but not just as a quick fix, as part of a much longer transformation.
Yeah, really interesting. So there's a few things that are popping out to me here. So let's see if we can kind of hit them one at a time. So the first thing you were talking about was the unique way about the way that the kind of business opportunity is set up, right? There's the no PV requirement and no wholesale. I want to get to what I might call quote unquote real coaching and like the actual supporting of people. But let's start up here. What's the thinking behind that idea of like not having a PV requirement and not, I think it's really interesting to like not have wholesale, because then you end up having coaches who are really coaches and not people who are really just customers that pretend to be coaches or sign up as coaches. And you don't have a lot of that confusion. What's the thinking behind that? Is that it, or are there other elements to it?
You're absolutely right. I mean, looking even at the current environment and regulatory and legal environment in our industry, unfortunately, we are seeing that more and more. Under scrutiny, we are finding that, a lot of times people who join companies are not real clients and customers. And I think that we had made a very conscious decision when the company was built, 15 years ago, that it is a company that has 96% of what we do is to clients. I mean, 96% of our sales are pure clients. So It's really in a conscientious way of deciding that you are absolutely right, bringing people who actually want to be coaches, not just joining us because they want to have discount.
And you mentioned something about like certified. Do you require some type of a training or something for them to go through in order for them to be coaching? It's not just like $100 and you're in and off, now you're a coach?
So there's no absolute requirements in going through certification because of the fact that we are very scientifically based. Our co-founder is also a doctor, and we do have a lot of health professionals within our field. It's also the fact that we want to make sure that we provide those extra services and trainings. So we do have a certification that we provide to our coaches, which guides them through some of the principles of as someone goes on plan or is trying to get into their health journey, what are some of the things that could help them? So we're doing that in collaboration with a very well-known university and being able to provide that service to our coaches who can sign up and actually purchase a certification so that they are more attuned to the practice of helping others go through their journey.
So what I'm hearing is that, it's less about, because what I see in training in most direct selling companies is, the training is focused really on selling, how to sell and how to recruit and how to teach other people how to sell and teach other people how to recruit. Very rarely do I see training that's really based on, now that you got these customers, what do you do with them? How do you keep them? How do you keep them on top of their program? How do you, service them along the way? How do you provide a really exceptional level of customer experience so that, you can actually keep people around and have a business that's not so incredibly dependent on acquiring new people because there's so many people, falling out of the bottom of the bucket all the time?
You're absolutely right. I think that we do provide, the certification and training for our coaches to have those tools to be able to really help clients through their health transformation. But Michelle, we also offer as much and even more trainings from them to become successful in their businesses, not only for them to be able to support clients, because the part that is also unique from a business perspective and a business model perspective with OPTIVIA is that you're able to support a certain number of clients and still have a thriving business. You can choose to be a business builder and really build an organization, but you are welcome. And that's where we're saying OPTIVIA is very inclusive, and we have a diversity of different people coming in who really build their businesses the way they want. Some of them, it's just by servicing clients and supporting clients. Some other are business builders and build organizations. They are all welcomed. We actually just recently at our convention, our largest convention ever in the history of the company that we had in July in Texas, we launched our OPTIVIA Learn, which is our new training program on really helping and supporting our coaches to be able to have trainings around, client acquisition, client support, coach acquisition, so sponsorship, and coach support, leadership development. So all of those are also part of what we offer as far as trainings to our field.
That's amazing. I mean, one of the things that I'm hearing again from you that seems quite unique is this idea of, meeting people where they are, letting them build the kind of business that is comfortable for them, for what they want. What I see in a lot of direct selling companies is, there's kind of like a one message to rule them all type of strategy, which is like, this is the only way that you do the business. And if you don't do it this way, we don't really want to have much to do with you. You can, do whatever you want, but we're not going to really support you. As opposed to saying, well, hey, we've got all these different types of people from all these different levels of skill and all this, how much time they want to put in and different capacities. And some people, might be happy just making $200 a month every month for the next 36 months, or some people might want to make a full-time income. And that there's a path. What I'm hearing you say is that you guys kind of really embrace this idea of saying, hey, there's a path for everybody here, whatever's comfortable for you. And if at some point along your journey, you want to level up or you want to back down or whatever, that's up to you. We'll support you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the beauty of our business model with the fact that, the differentiators that we mentioned about are the uniqueness of our business model, not being really a distributor or wholesale model, attracting, people into really wanting to be part of this and being coaches. We have, if we do ratios within, industry ratios, we have at the end of the quarter that we just announced our results, 13,500 active earning coaches, almost, 5.5% over the second quarter of 2016. And, that was with our revenue of $75.7 million, which exceeded our guidance to the street. And when you look at some of those numbers and those ratios, you see that actually the productivity of our coaches is much higher than industry standard. The longevity and the loyalty of our coaches is much longer. So are our clients. And I think that these are the parts that make it unique on the thing that it's about meeting them where they are versus us telling them where they need to be. And that also sparks from the cultural part of how we operate in this company, and especially with OPTIVIA. And part of how we built OPTIVIA was built on a very, very close collaboration with our field. So this company has a very unique culture because it was pretty much at the very beginning of its, I would say, inception, was run by the field because, Medifast did not have the expertise or the interest at that point to be really a direct selling company. Since our new CEO, Dan Chard, joined, and when Mike McDonald and the McDonald family being really the founding companies of this company, it really started seeing the potential that this could be actually a full direct selling company. that we started to working very, very closely with the field and really trying to establish a collaborative way where we're able to fully understand the field, fully get feedback from the field, and as a team, as one team together, really build towards becoming OPTIVIA, which would reflect all the key premises of a company that would be welcoming to the field because they have so much into everything. They have had so much say into everything that we've built. I think that's the part that's a great learning lesson for many companies out there where when corporate feels a lot of times that, we know better. We look at numbers and that this means this and that. No, numbers are important. They give us insights, but the collaborative aspects of working with the field has been instrumental for what we've been able to do. We just reported 7 consecutive quarter of year-over-quarterly growth, up to 10.6%, and that is because of the collaboration that we established with the field. And one of the first learnings was, let's meet them where they are. Let's meet people where they are versus us telling them where they need to be.
Which is great. And, there's one key word that I want to kind of really pop from what you said, which is, you don't say, oh, we have so many active coaches. You say we have so many active earning coaches. And that is a huge
Correct.
key word that really says a lot about the culture that you're building and what you're trying to do there is really, thinking about, people that are in the business to earn. And that there's all different levels to do that. And you can support them on all those different levels and without needing to kind of inflate numbers of what we call active, but really most of those people aren't doing the business and aren't really, it's kind of like a misleading number. And I think DSA started to do that this year. I was really happy to see that, for the first time, they broke down that number of people involved in direct selling into, full-time, part-time, and just customer people, so we could get a better idea of like what's really going on out there, who's really buying and selling. And in my opinion, I think that was a great move because it brings that transparency to the table and it makes us realize, hey, there's a small percentage of people that are really trying to build a business. And, when we have income disclosure statements that include that when the numbers are calculated, including people that aren't really there to earn and aren't really trying to build a business, it makes our opportunities look bad, because you're counting
Absolutely.
people, right? That aren't actually there to make money.
Absolutely. And that's been kind of, we have been, nominated and selected and awarded for the second year in a row by Forbes as one of the most trustworthy companies in the United States, the only direct selling company on that list. And that's again, it goes back to the DNA of really the company being about integrity, being about really the well-being of others and being in the service of the mission. And I think that even our coaches, if you were to talk or interview any of our coaches, regardless where they sit in their organization, on the top, in the middle, or just as a new coach starting, they all obviously want to be able to earn money because that's how, this is obviously an opportunity. But that's not necessarily the only driver. They come because the mission matters to them. They're attracted by something and a company that doesn't just do false promises and, you do this, you do that, you're going to get this. And once you're through the door, it's not at all. It's really the premise of people joining this mission and throughout paying it forward because not only they lose the weight, but they gain a life. And I think that's the part that's really unique about our company. We don't focus on the weight loss. We don't focus on the claims of this 20 pounds, 30 pounds, this or that. It's more about what you gain in your life and the bigger life that you're able to live once you really create health. And that's the part that then you're like, oh, this has impacted my life so much that I want to pay it forward. And through the process of paying it forward to many more people and really touching other lives, you actually get to earn. And that's the real possibility that gets created that makes the numbers the way they look like for us and the growth that we've been experiencing. It's because we're doing it out of integrity and we're doing it with our eyes on the target of the fact that it's not the number of people let's do like a massive sponsorship, but it's about creating the opportunity for people to join us because this is something that they really want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's so many advantages, I think, to doing it that way. And I'd imagine that it probably builds a much more stable foundation, to build a business on, because it's not, there's not a lot of kind of churning and burning through numbers. And so, so many direct selling companies have such intense pressure on their recruiting machines, and as soon as there's like a little hiccup in recruiting, like the company just like goes into like a nosedive because they have 80% churn or 90% churn. And you can make a lot of money fast, but it's not going to stand up, when your model is built that way. So congratulations. I could go on and on about this forever, but I want to kind of move to the next subject.
Sure.
Let's talk about multi-channel, because, that's another thing that people in direct selling kind of get a little nervous about. This is something you guys have been doing for a while now. Talk to us about, what's your advice to companies that maybe aren't doing multi-channel, but have kind of been seeing more and more companies do this? How do you guys think about putting that together? And how does your field kind of wrap their head around the idea that someone can get product from a place that isn't them?
That's a very good question. So it was really interesting because it's been a tumultuous, I think, history between Medifast, Take Share for Life, now OPTIVIA, because obviously it's been challenging to have a field that sees the company as their direct competitor and the products being distributed through other channels. Despite that, they were able to grow and they were able to actually become the dominant distribution, channel for us. And I think that at the beginning, while problematic, did not stop the growth. But I think that we got to a point with Take Share for Life where it was really, really important to create the exclusivity for our field, because you are able to grow it to a certain point, but beyond that, it becomes really, really challenging. And that's where OPTIVIA really created a segue for us to be able to create that exclusivity. Our field still is able to sell Medifast branded products, but really OPTIVIA is only for them. It is not present in any of the channels that we currently have at Medifast. And one of the key decisions that was made when Dan Chard, our new CEO, joined us last quarter of 2016 was really looking at our company and really assessing, how best are we able to support the field more? How can Medifast be, organized and reshaped so that all of our employees and everything that we do is really to the service of our coaches and our clients. And I think that this is part of the prioritization. This is part of life cycle of the company, of really understanding where is it and how is it that best we could leverage. The second biggest channel for us has been Med Direct, which is really the Medifast Direct online. People come and customers purchase. And now with that in mind, we're looking at, while you're keeping that channel, but could it make sense that becomes a digital acquisition tool for our coaches versus being a separate and a competitive, or seen as a competitive, channel. So these are some of the things that you could create in actually merging and bringing more closeness between the channels versus for them to be so competitive and not provide the support from a growth perspective for the company.
Absolutely. You can really kind of merge the best of both worlds in that case, right? You can use, a really efficient digital and e-commerce, customer acquisition strategy that has a really effective, kind of cost to acquire a customer. And then you can use a coach to extend the lifetime value of that customer by providing them a level of service that an e-commerce based company alone could never provide.
Yes, exactly. And I think that this additional steps that we've taken on really trying to synergize the channels to become really collaboratively working versus, being cannibalizing of each other has really also helped us fuel trust and build momentum with our field.
Amazing. That's really, really cool. Very, very progressive thinking. Really, congratulations. Really cool stuff. In terms of let's get into a little bit of running the business stuff. Obviously, there's so much data that we get around the field and what they're doing and customers and from the different channels. How do you look at, what's your perspective on how you're using data to kind of make smarter decisions, and what are really like the kind of the key metrics that you're looking at like every day and every week that you're kind of really watching that make you feel like you've really got your pulse on the business, your finger on the pulse of the business?
Sure. Obviously, data is extremely important to us at so many levels, because for us, and when I look at data, is not only what it tells me about the business today, but it's also it provides me insights about the future, about the tomorrow, about the next quarter. And some of those metrics are extremely important to monitor, not just to know that, we're doing pretty good, but also, are we going to continue to be doing good moving forward? So I do have a daily dashboard that I look at, and then we have, monthly and quarterly numbers. We're a public company, so so a lot of that information is confidential as far as what are the specifics that we share. But really, for me, some of the key metrics that I look at are, to me, the three KPIs are really sales, which is the number of clients and number of new clients, that I look at. And as well as average orders, I also look at, our number of sponsorship, new coaches coming in and total coaches, and then activity level of coaches, because it's a lot of people think that it's all about sponsorship, but, it's not just about bringing, warm bodies in. It's about bringing people that are coming in and are active and are enjoying what they're doing. So the activity rate and bringing sponsorship with activity is what really matters to us, and we look at. So we monitor that. And then it's leadership development. It's really understanding from the day that someone comes through the door, how fast and how far are they able to go in their career growth and how the rank advancements happen. And are we able to move people through their career growth within OPTIVIA? And we actually just launched a new recognition program, OPTIVIA Path to Achievement, at our conference. And I think that these are kind of the metrics that not only tell me right now, today, how we're doing, but then I can see that, what's going to happen for the next few months and the next quarter. So wherever we start seeing kind of declines in one or other numbers, like clients start looking, not as good, then we're looking at is activity level of the coaches coming down. And we know that if we don't have some of those, then it's going to be reflected in the following month. So, data continues to create for us a visibility, and also is a way for us to validate that a lot of the activities, incentives, programs, all the different things, accelerators that we're putting out there are working or not. So I'm very big into postmortems and understanding if you're actually hitting targets on some of those, that if we're not, we're course correcting immediately, and we're not having something that's out there for months and months and is not yielding to the results that we want. We also work very closely with the field, because there are some quantitative measures, obviously, that you look at dashboards and financial, statements, et cetera, on. But there's also the qualitative results that I think, and data that I think are very, very important. And that's kind of how the field is doing. What's the level of trust? What's the level of engagement? Are people coming to events? How are they feeling about their mentorship? How are they feeling working with each other in collaboration? And those things we're able to really evaluate in a very, very close collaboration with the top leadership. We just created a top leadership between top executives of the company and our top leaders, called OPTIVIA One, where we're able to have frequent meetings and interactions where we are, through them, also getting the qualitative of what's going on, because that's the part that also gives you the signals of growth or risks moving forward that the numbers might not be able to do.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a really cool culture in terms of how you guys are dealing with and interacting with the field. Let's jump into actually the more of the corporate culture. So, we in direct selling, we find ourselves talking about the field so much, and I thought it might be nice to kind of talk about the internal corporate culture and, how do you approach, and how much energy do you put into building a culture inside of your own corporate team, and how important is that to you, and how do you do that?
Actually, that's such a great question. We feel that the corporate culture is absolutely the heart and soul of everything that we do, and has a primary and a priority importance. As we moved to really building OPTIVIA, a lot of the focus was really building the culture of OPTIVIA in the field. And we have just started a culture project internally to now do that with our corporate team. So while we completely understand the importance of it and the priority of it, but really because we have been going through the rebranding and very field facing, we haven't really gone too far yet with the corporate building part of it, but we know that it's absolutely important, and that seamlessness of the cultures to be really linked between corporate and field is also extremely important.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on into the kind of industry in general. We saw last year that for the first time in many years that direct selling in the U.S. saw like a tiny decline, or you could just call it flat. I saw some of the early numbers, for Q1 that are looking like that decline might be continuing to go down, maybe even more sharply. And there's a lot of companies, especially big companies, that are kind of seeing a suffering in their U.S. business. Do you have any assessment or any thoughts on what might be going on out there? A lot of people want to just kind of blame it on Amazon and kind of keep doing things the way they've always done it. Some people think we need to change a lot. Some people think we need to change a little. What's your assessment of the market, in the U.S. and what some of the nature of some of the challenges might be?
Yeah, I think that we've had a really world-changing events that have happened. Election, the last quarter of 2016, and a lot of the changes that have happened within our country, I think has impacted. I know that we talked about that at the last Direct Selling Association conference. A lot of the companies that had exposure to a diverse, group of people because of some of the immigration law changes saw a huge drop in their businesses. And I think that part of it is also the fact that our industry itself has gone through a lot of scrutiny, and some of the unfortunate, legal cases, et cetera, that have brought a negative attention to us have tainted a little bit more our image externally for people that might have been interested in joining our industry in general. But I think more than that, it's the fact that we are also dealing with a different and an evolving, both consumer and entrepreneur dynamics in our country. We all talk about the gig economy and the variety of other options that are now available to entrepreneurs and people that would like flexibility, which was only the possibility was direct selling in the few years ago. If you wanted to have a flexible life and still earn, et cetera, it was, direct selling was your best bet. Now there are other ways to do it. So I think the combination of all of those together with the fact that, if you're part, and I think that's general to our industry and more particular to some companies, that some people come in with a lot of, promises made to them, and they come into the companies and it's not that. And I think that that's the part of retention that becomes a huge problem within our industry is how do we manage expectations? How do we really put out there the importance of being transparent, the importance of really, doing some of the things that are important to not interrupt the lives of others, things like inventory loading, things that have been causing, issues in people's lives that has led them to leave companies. Those are some of the things that hopefully with some of the new legislations and some of the new rules that through the DSA and through other legislations we're putting in place, we are able to actually, stop having, because I think that's where we suffer from people leaving our industry and attrition being so high in some companies.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's definitely been this kind of scramble with a lot of companies to create, some type of a customer program. But where I think many of them may have fallen short is, they kind of ran because they knew they needed to create a customer classification. They knew they needed to create a way to attract customers. And so they were very thoughtful and they created that way. But then there really wasn't any kind of training or anything to back up. Well, now that you've got a customer, what do you do with this person? And it's very different than a business builder. They're there for a very different reason. And the way that you need to serve them and keep them active is extremely different than someone who joined to do the business. And so what's the training around that? And what kind of interaction do you need to have with this customer of yours now? And, that kind of an idea versus like, oh, we launched a customer program, go get customers. Okay, let's get back to building the business now, And
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that a lot of it's also understanding that when, we made a decision as a company that we were not interested in building hype and suddenly going, 3, 4, times and just like going through the roof. We said, and these are conscientious decisions that companies made, that we'd rather grow slowly but steadily and with a solid foundation so that we're able to service and be able to support everyone that join us, a client or a coach. And I think that part of it, it's also for companies to understand within our industry that, while it's amazing and extraordinary when we see the hyper growth happening in some of the companies, but it's more about, investing not only in acquisition, but investing in retention and investing in areas where you're able to actually not only be this company that people have waiting lists on to be able to join, but people that come in and feel welcomed and not just disposed of or treated as a number or then not have the service and the experience that's needed. I think that these are the areas of opportunities for all of us to look into on how do you retain, how do you satisfy, how do you enhance the experience, not only just for attracting them into it, but to keeping them and for creating the desire for them to stay on and grow with you and that loyalty builder, which for us is a huge chunk of our investment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I have a big stick in that game since that's what I do at Direct Tech Labs. My whole mission is all about retention and how do we do that. It's amazing how I talk to so many companies, obviously, about their efforts and you see, how tiny, if any investment at all there is made in retention. And then how little metrics there are actually that are enabling them to actually know how they are or are not increasing retention in any way except for at the most macro, which is like the average amount of time somebody stays, instead of segmenting people and understand that different kinds of people have a different type of journey and who are these people and what kind of journey will this person have versus that person. And maybe someone needs to experience the product for 6 months before they're ready to sell it. Or maybe they were selling it for a little while and they realized it wasn't right for them. And instead of letting them die, they want to still get the benefits of the product, right? As long as we didn't burn them on the business. And there's lots of different ways to see that coming and know who's who and, blah, 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 blah. I can get into that forever, but I won't.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that people want to join a company, they're joining a community, they're joining a culture. They want to have fun. They want to enjoy being part of this. So really making things simple, fun, duplicable. I mean, these were some of the guidelines that we used as we created OPTIVIA, because it's not just about, bringing people in, but it's making them want to be, part of this community and continuing to be. And for that, it needs to be simple. It needs to be fun. It needs to be easy enough and trainable enough so that it's not like they have to go and do things that is above and beyond the part-time that they've signed up for. Because if not, people are going to disengage.
Amen. So moving into another topic, it's interesting that we're in this industry that is, like 75% female, and we still don't really have that kind of representation amongst the executives in the space. But you're one of them. And, there's definitely a lot of changes going on, in terms of, the way that we look at women in the workplace over the last couple of years. Tell me a little bit about your experiences. What are the qualities you try to embody as a female executive? What do you try to bring to the table? Is there no difference for you, whether, if you were a man or a woman, or is there some difference that you feel like you bring to the table you try to embody as a female executive?
That's such a great question, Michelle, and I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that, while we are in a country that has voting rights for women for many, many years now, but you still have the glass ceiling at the corporate level for many women executives. And when you look at some of our stats, we are way behind a lot of the, advanced countries, for example, in Europe or other parts of the world. And I think that when you look at our industry, it's very interesting because, the voice of an executive at a table is important when it's a woman that can relate to that, mom, or can relate to that working mom who has kids and has to manage being a full-time mom and a full-time caretaker of her family while trying to make ends meet, or be a single mom who's running around. So there are parts of, I would say, relatedness that really helps with being a woman at this job. But it also brings a little bit of, and I don't want to say the men don't have hearts. Obviously, they definitely do. But there is the softness, the heart that comes to play, which is, I think, in my experience, has been very helpful when we're working with the field. A lot of times, having the possibility to negotiate and work and really, really collaborate and build trusting relationships with the field, there is the part of the heart that might be missing in some of the corporate roles where they see you as a cutthroat corporate person coming in, not really understanding what they're doing. But when you switch to your role as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, as someone that can, a little bit more softness around it, it makes those relationship buildings much, much easier. So I think that in that sense, it has also helped, but also I see my role as a blessing that has been a long career building, a lot of work to get here, but as an obligation to be a stepping stone and a helping hand to other women in our industry to come up and within our departments and within our companies to be able to inspire others to want to be executives and to be women executives is not always an easy job. And it's not really inspiring to others because they're seeing us kind of running around like mad people and then running and skipping things for the kids and having to sacrifice, family to be able to do it. But I think that if we have a little bit more of the flexibility to be able to have in the workplace and to provide the same promises that we make to our field a lot of times, and that's why a lot of women join our industry, if we're able to mimic a lot of those internally in our companies, I believe we would have a lot more executive women in this industry.
And you brought that idea of work-life balance up, and I wanted to address that as well because, I see so many executives in this space, just kind of burning the candle at both ends. And it seems like everybody is running around with their hair on fire all the time. And a lot of times it's because companies, are putting so much money into the comp plan that they're kind of undercapitalizing corporate. But and so everyone's just kind of constantly running and there's no such thing as like slowing down. How do you approach your practice of trying to keep a balance between your responsibilities and roles as an executive and your personal life and just trying to have some kind of balance in your life? How do you approach that?
That's a great question. And I think this is valid for both men and women. I have so many amazing working dads or single dads within my life that I see that are juggling this as well. And I think that I became a mom late last year. So it's been an interesting year for me to really understand what balance means because even before becoming a mom, I was never able to create quote unquote balance in my life because I was a workaholic and just, for me, this is not a job. This is a mission and I've loved what I'm doing. So I never know when to stop. But as I became a wife and a mom, it became very, very clear for me that the idea of balance might be a little bit out of reach. But what has worked for me is really prioritization and planning, the P&P for me. So prioritization in the sense that really having the ability of knowing that whatever happens, my family is first. My family comes first, and associating with a company where the cultural values of family come first as well. And then having the ability to plan, which our lives are planned around, what's happening when it's convention. When a convention is happening, it's craziness. So I have additional nannies. So I have, travel differently. My husband, I'm very lucky, is currently the stay-at-home dad. So I think it's more about really providing the possibility and being gentle on yourself and giving grace to yourself on the fact that there is no such a concept of a super mom or a superhero or a super dad, but just human beings who struggle through, not being the perfect version of themselves, but really plan and prioritize as you go through the year and try to get the best out of it. But I think from a prioritization perspective, it is important to really dissociate the fact that if you're just doing this for a paycheck, this will never become a priority from a heart perspective and a mind perspective, and will continuously be a stress. But if you're doing this not just as a job, but as something that you really believe in, it becomes a priority. It's not just prioritizing your job, but prioritizing the fact that you're able to be someone who can impact so many lives. And then the perspective becomes different.
That's a great lesson and a great message. And so you might have already answered my next question, which is, if there was one message that you could kind of get out to the world, let's say you could place an ad on the internet that, every person that would go online tomorrow would see this ad or see this message. What would that message be, or what would it say?
It would probably say, if you're looking for lifelong transformation and creating a bigger life by paying it forward and being part of a community of like-minded, like-hearted people who really believe in transforming lives and touching the world, come join us.
That's cool. Is there a charity or like some special cause that's close to your heart?
So I have been involved with a lot of, nonprofit organizations, and then created my own nonprofit for a few years that helped women victims, women and families and children victim of domestic violence. And that's a cause that was very close to my heart, because as I got into it a little bit more, I found out that these are people that, and women most of the time, and children that lose hope and forget to believe in themselves and are kind of left out there thinking that they're not worthy of anything. And I believe that, if there is one thing in the world that I hope I'm able to do, is paying it forward to those that, often don't think that there's any hope for them out there, and think that they could never become anything that they want to be. And if we have the possibility to make them feel that self-confidence again, make them feel that they matter, make them feel that they could do anything that they want, and they are victims, not, burdens of society, I think that we would have a much better world out there.
If you could go back to any time in your life and walk up to yourself back then and give yourself a piece of advice, when would you go back to? What period in your life would you go back to, and what advice would you give yourself?
I think I would go back to probably, maybe 11 years ago. A lot of things were changing in my life, and I was going through a lot of struggles, both personally and professionally. And I kept thinking that I'm doing something wrong, and I had to do it a certain way, and things needed to happen a certain way. I was very attached to outcome and really attached to how things should be. And I think that when I go, if I had a chance to go back to that period of time, I would say to myself that embrace the change. There is a reason why you're going through that, and don't be attached to outcome. Don't think that things need to happen a certain way. They're happening this way, and just trust the way things are happening, and everything will be okay. I think that's some of the biggest learnings that I've had over the past few years in my life.
Yeah, I've been through that myself. So I heard this great metaphor for that once. That was, we're kind of like, all of us are on a little raft, and life is like the river, and the river is flowing. And sometimes we forget that, we're not the river. We're just a raft on the river. We can control a little bit going this way, a little bit going that way. And we bump up against all these other rafts, and we can even fight the current for a little while, but you can't do it forever, because you're not the river. You're just a raft.
Absolutely. And we're a lucky raft, because we're in the best industry ever in this world. So
yeah, totally grateful to be here. It's so much opportunity here, and so much, I think, so much potential for the industry. So thank you, Mona. It's been such a privilege speaking to you. It's so inspiring to see, your journey and what you've gone through, and the amazing changes and success you're having with OPTIVIA. Looking forward to staying in touch with you, and maybe we'll check back with you again sometime soon.
Absolutely, Mishra. It's been an honor, a privilege, and I feel so blessed that we have someone of your experience and caliber in our industry to help us all. So thank you for the time, and really looking forward to seeing you soon again. Thanks.
Oh, thank you very much.